Welcome to another video, guys. Today I will give you a Hearthstone board positioning guide, so you can start positioning like a pro and play around everything you can, when you can. I've coached so many high diamond players to legend already, but one mistake I see in most is they throw minions on the board without really thinking about the positioning. So in this video, I will try to explain every positioning choice I make when playing against each class. I know this video is not gonna get a ton of views because it doesn't have a flashy title like oh my god 97% win rate meta breaker or how to grow your collection with 3 to 5 inches in a month. But if you enjoy what I'm doing, share this video with your friends, drop a like and subscribe if you're new. Now let's get into the guide. The most common effects you need to be playing around in Standard are Betrayal Effects and Cleave Effects, but there are quite a few other unique cards that you might need to start thinking about when playing against certain classes. One thing I always try to teach the people I coach is to always try to play around the most common effects when positioning, even when it doesn't matter, just so they can remain focused on it. There are so many randomly generated cards in Hearthstone right now, so it's probably best for you to remain mindful about your positioning, just so you don't get punished by a created buy card. The easiest way for you to play around the Betrayal effect is to follow this simple rule. Always put the low attack minions in the middle. Even put a stealth minion or a minion that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers in the middle, because they won't be able to target it. An even better way to isolate minions is to put a dormant minion in the middle. This way it will be a lot harder or even impossible to pull off betrayal effects against you. Always try to isolate big minions by putting small buffer minions in between them, and play your big minions always on the sides when you can. If you really want to isolate a minion, the best way to do it is by playing it on the most left side, because that minion will remain on the most left side unless you decide otherwise. If you, however, play it on the right side, as soon as you play a card that summons a minion, the summoned minion will automatically go on the right side, making your big minion not so isolated anymore. It's still correct to play your second big minion on the most right side just so it's isolated from the first big minion, but usually the first one should always go on the left if you're playing against betrayal effects. Now let's talk about Cleave Effects. Here the situation is quite the opposite, since with Cleaves you want your biggest attack minion to be in the middle, so your opponent has to take the biggest amount of damage if he decides to go for that play. If you, however, have a taunt, what you want to do is play it on the most left side and put a small buffer minion in between it, so that way a cleave effect will not be able to punish your other big minions on the right side. Like I said, usually your first big minion should go on the far left, so you can isolate it. But if you're planning on playing a big taunt after that, maybe you should put the first big minion on the right, so that next turn, on the left, you can isolate your taunt. Watch this part again if you really need to, and really try to understand everything I said here, and you will have a good foundation on playing against these effects. Now let's go over all of the cards you need to be thinking about when playing against each class in Standard. Starting off with the neutral cards with Zephyrus at the top. Another reason why you always want to be positioning well against betrayal effects is because you might get caught off guard by a Highlander deck you were not expecting. Zephyrus really likes giving betrayal when you give him a good opportunity for it, so always try to follow the big minions on the side rule. But also be mindful that he can give explosive shot as well, which is a lot harder to get from him, but you can still get punished by it by placing a big minion in the middle and maybe 2 stealths on the side. So be smart and always put the stealth minion in the middle when you can. Lake Fresher is also a neutral card, but let's cover it in the Druid section, cause reasons. Against Mage, the most common spell you need to be playing around right now would be Combustion. The way you do that is by placing your highest health minion in the middle, so it can't splash hard on the sides. You can also try playing around Cone of Cold by again putting your high attack minions as far away as possible from each other. And lastly, you can also try playing around Rolling Fireball by placing a can't be targeted by spells minion on the side, but that one is quite tricky and quite hard to pull off when it actually matters. Mages do generate tons of extra spells nowadays, so it's gonna be really hard for you to play around everything they can throw at you, but do your best. Against Warrior, you need to be playing around the new weapon, Reaper's Sigh, and its cleave effect, like I told you earlier. Either isolate a taunt on the most left or play your biggest attack minion in the middle. You should also try to be playing around ramming speed, since some big warriors do run it, and there are versions that can discover it from spell lackeys too. The card nobody runs is Sweeping Strikes, but again, it is discoverable, so try to play around it too. I know it's not a positioning tip, but you should also try to play around Blade Storms against warriors, by never playing the same HP minions on the board. And you should also not be playing useless small minions on the board after turn 4 so you can play better against the brawl. Against Druid, you probably know by now, but you should be playing against their rushing freshers. Isolate a taunt on the most left or play your biggest attack minion in the middle, so at least the fresher can take the biggest amount of damage. It is tricky here since they do have a second rushing minion, but if you manage to isolate a taunt on the far left and far right, you will be denying some of their cleave value. You could also really just play a really big taunt minion on the far left, but that is easier said than done against Druid. Against rogues, it's quite tricky right now, because you need to be playing around all of the mage spells as well, because they have Wand Thief. But mostly, try to play around Betrayal and its bigger cousin, Unidentified Contract with Betrayal. Sure, nobody runs them, but if you see a lackey or lackey generator, you can be sure that they can discover it from their spell lackey. If they are some kind of Burgo rogue, they can also steal something, so be mindful of what class card can punish you. Against the Shaman, there are actually quite a few things you need to worry about. The lurker below started seeing a lot more play nowadays, so here you have to make sure not to let them chain the effect too easily, by playing big HP minions next to small HP minions. You should also be worrying about Lightning Breath, which is not a card they usually run, and they also have the restriction of having to hold a dragon to actually activate it. But it's quite doable, and I have suffered from a random dragon into a random Lightning Breath. So again, spread those big and small HP minions like you did with the Lurker. Next up, let's talk about Priest, which you probably didn't expect to see in a positioning guide, but surprise surprise, Soul Mirror. The way you play around this bad boy is by placing your biggest or most important minions on the far right. Soul Mirror copies your minions from left to right, so if the priest has a few minions on the board and tries to play Soul Mirror, that means he's gonna miss out on your big chunkers on the right. Another thing you should be playing around against priest is, well, everything. A lot like Rogue, they can discover the cards from your deck, so if you're running cards that require playing around with positioning, then you should be playing around that as well. Against Hunter, we have to mention Explosive Shot again, even though nobody runs that and discovering spells is not too big for Hunter right now. Lake Fresher can also be found in some Hunter janky lists, but usually I don't think about that one when I'm playing. Against Demon Hunter, again, just so this guide is complete, we have to mention Flame Reaper. I've only seen this card once against a bad Demon Hunter Highlander deck, but who knows, one day it might get buffed and start seeing more play. So again, same playstyle as if it's a warrior with a Sai. So these are all of the defensive positionings you need to try to play around with. Now let's talk about a few offensive ones. Always try to play your Faceless Lackey next to a minion that can attack that turn, or next to a taunt, because you can get a Direwolf Alpha from it. If you're playing Vulture, there's also a slim chance of getting a Flame Tongue Totem from it. So again, same playstyle as with the Lackey. Serpent Share can also give you a random Flame Tongue, but you can't really control the positioning there, other than playing it before placing another minion next to the attacking minion. I can also remind you to play your cards beneficially, so if you have cards like Box Truck, Clacker, you can get a good effect from it. But you probably already figured that one out on your own, since you're running those cards. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope this helps you position better in Standard and climb more ranks. Feel free to contact me for coaching, and if you enjoyed the video, a like and a subscribe would be awesome. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.